All right. What is up, everybody? We made it to Friday. Today's video, Concepts with Kimbler. I just want to kind of talk about the financial situation going on in the UFC, or what I think is the financial situation going on in the UFC. So, first and foremost, I gotta admit, I didn't go look at a balance sheet. I didn't go look at assets. I didn't do anything like that. I'm not looking at their taxes. I'm just looking at the moves that are being made as a business and the business environment as well. So when we speak of the environment, we're going to speak of a couple of different things. The environment of mixed martial arts, which is what the UFC itself is kind of the head of, sort of. Within the last 2 years, and I personally give a lot of credit to this to Jake Paul, fighter pay has become a major conversation. If you are not on the side of fighters deserve to get paid more, I don't know what you're doing, but you're a fucking idiot. We had fighters in the UFC 2-3 years ago getting paid $2,000 to go in there and get the ever-living shit beat out of them. I'm sorry, but that's just not... It's not right. Now I think the minimum is 15. I think they tried to up it to 7 first and then to 15. I could have my numbers off, but okay. And let's say 3 fights in a year is pretty active. You made $45,000. If you made it to all 3 fights, if one of your fights got canceled, your opponent backed out, something happened to you, you don't get paid. So if you only had 2 fights, you only made $30,000. Oh, and out of that $30,000, you have to pay your own gym fees. You have to pay your coaches and everything else. So you're literally in the poverty line. Okay, so that's not debatable. We're not going to debate that at all. That's become an issue, and it's become talked about. There's been increases, but it's not to where it should be. In addition to that, One Championship has had their first USA event, and they did that up in Colorado. And One Championship has been they put stuff on every Friday, I'm pretty sure, over in Asia, and they do pretty good. In fact, they do so good that Bellator just had Bellator 300, and that's their last pay-per-view under that ownership. They're being bought out by One Championship. So One Championship will own Bellator, and I believe the plan is they're going to continue under the Bellator name for 2 years. And then I didn't read much further than that. I assume they're just going to transition the fighters into one division, or under one umbrella. They might have a different idea though. But all right. Let me think. Also in the environment. Okay. The UFC sold. All right, so let's go back in time and let's think about the first time the UFC sold. When Dana had Lorenzo and them buy it. I should have looked this part up and known it for sure, but you know what was it? Probably around UFC 10 or something, maybe later. It was probably later than UFC 10, but Dana buys it. Now, this is in my youth. I specifically remember when this happened. I remember watching Dana on the speech. It's not like I tuned in to see it. It was just on news segments and things that I watched with my dad. I remember Dana talking about we're running towards regulation. We're changing the rules, so this is not just craziness of people fighting to the death like this is a sport. And but the whole reason it sells is because they're not going to profit. You know what I'm saying? Like they were going to go under. In fact, they continue to go under, and we're in the red, and we're taking offers to be bought until that last fight on Ultimate Fighter, where Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonnar grabbed the attention of the world, including myself. I tuned in and watched it live, and it was one of the most epic fights of all time. They got really, really lucky with that. Not to discredit anything, but like, not every fight plays out like that and has that opportunity and everything else. And they started gaining traction. We know they weren't doing good with money because Dana was straight up saying we can't pay these fighters, we have to invest so that we can pay down the road and pay for other things. Well, now that hand's gotten forced. I'm going to talk about a couple other more recent things. So, I don't know all the details to it. I never even saw the commercial, or perhaps it was the can that caused the outrage. But Bud Light did something with, I don't know if it was trans or if it was just gay or the whole LBGQT. If I forgot a letter, you know, hey, I'm sorry. Bud Light did something in support of that group of like LBGQT. I don't think I'm saying that right. Anyways, and caused an outrage of all their non-LBQT fans. So you can imagine all the hillbillies and tough, burly rednecks that can't fucking run a mile. We're gonna support gay marriage. I ain't drinking this Bud Light no more. God damn it. Go drink some Coors. Anyways, it's literally been shown in their profits and everything what a beating they've taken. They are now UFC's beer sponsor. If you've been a UFC fan, you know Modelo has been the sponsor for a long time. They not only shit on Modelo, UFC shit on Modelo by kicking them out, because if you go back in time, Bud Light wouldn't touch UFC. And that all matters. Why would you ever, and especially Dana, go back to someone who told you no now when they're failing? The reason why is because the UFC's going down. They need the $100 million. And then Bud Light needs the opportunity with the UFC to bounce back. So you got two different things going on. All right. Then the UFC just sold. The UFC just sold, and they're bought by Endeavor. And Endeavor's looking at WWE, and they're literally looking at changing stuff around with the UFC and WWE. The whole reason it sells and these transitions and acquisitions are made is because profits aren't where they want to be. Lost Francis Ngannou. Said they were going to pay him more than anyone's ever been paid. And then he went and made more money in one fight than he made in his entire career. Think about that. They signed John Jones to what? What'd they say? 10 million? They said 10 million for 8 fights. That's 8 fucking years for John Jones, if not longer. He only fights once a year. He's not going to last that long. Like, he's not going to be here 8 years from now. That whole contract is made to make it look like it, and John was in a bind with his money, so he had to take a fight. He was trying to sit out forever, and he ran out of money. There's another one. There's so many things going on with this. There's one more. Francis, UFC sold. They did the Bud Light sponsorship. Oh, the USADA situation. The whole USADA situation busted open because Conor wasn't going to get an exemption. That's what happened. That's straight up what happened. The UFC has always bragged on USADA, this and that. When it's a hassle, they're like, that's USADA that handles that, not us. UFC has taken pride year after year of being the top doping sports company or whatever, and that is 100% due to USADA. They literally flipped the script overnight at a press conference and dogged USADA over and over, and it's all because they weren't going to give Conor an exemption to fight. They straight up, and they're looking like complete idiots when they do it. The guy that freaking busted Lance Armstrong is literally sitting there sounding like a jackass. Like, he's literally contradicting stuff he said 6 months ago. All right. Why do they want Conor back? Because Conor's the biggest fight draw they have. Conor's the biggest money maker they have. They just lost Izzy. Something one of my friends has pointed out to me, and I've mentioned it, I think, in a video. I make a lot of videos that don't get online, but he doesn't like to watch UFC because there's not consistent champions. There's no one to get behind. And that actually makes a lot of sense as a fan. And when you start thinking financial perspective. Who's going to keep buying a ticket when every time they see something that's someone new, there's no one they can get behind and connect with or cheer for or whatever? It's always just random. You have to have the who, what, why, when, and where to make the story. You have to have the story for the fight, and if you don't know the two people involved, then you don't know what's going on. That's kind of why I bet no one watching this video could name a champion in every division of boxing right now. They probably couldn't even name every division of boxing. Every time we watch a fight, like when Canelo fights someone and it's someone else right now, it's kind of odd, but Canelo goes to take like his 4th belt. We don't know who that guy is. No one knows those names. It is what it is. Sorry, traffic. So, with all that said, I think I've briefly mentioned this before. Hopefully I haven't made this whole video and I'm just like doing the same thing again. But I really feel like the UFC is in a financial burden. And within the next 2 to 5 years, now Hunter is really smart in the UFC. He's a jackass, but he's smart. He knows what he's doing to get around the shit. But I'm a firm believer in karma. When you do stuff dirty, like they did Mark Hunt dirty, that's going to come back on you. And I think this coming back, the way they shit on people and say, oh, he doesn't want to fight, and try to make someone out like they're scared just because they won't pay them the proper amount, all that's coming back to burn them now. I really think 2 to 5 years, we're going to see one championship take over. The reason being because one and even PFL were so much more open to trying new things. For example, who was it? Someone wanted to kickbox in the UFC, and Dana was like, when was the last time you seen a sold-out kickboxing match? Well, probably just a month ago, if you go and look over at Asia, which has a bigger population. I mean, I just say what it is. The pricing's different over there, and it's just working in a different market. I don't know. He wants to be condescending instead of really face facts. Like a characteristic seems obvious of Dana when he's on the, like, someone got him, like he realizes he missed something or someone one-upped him, he just turns to condescending instead of wanting to learn. It is what it is. We're all men with pride. But so one is willing to do all these other sports, jiu-jitsu, and we're watching the UFC try to copy it through Fight Pass. The UFC is trying to use Fight Pass to do like bare knuckle shit and jiu-jitsu tournaments and everything else. Well, one's putting it on in the entire event. You turn on a one championship event, you're going to have MMA, Muay Thai, kickboxing. You might have jiu-jitsu. I feel like there's one other thing. And now they're messing with Muay Thai with MMA gloves, and they're messing with Muay Thai and MMA is bare knuckle, and they're just doing a lot of things. PFL, they had the smart cage in the just the way they scored stuff. They tried to keep the scoreboard at the bottom of strikes while it was going on live, kind of like you're watching a basketball game or something. The referee had a camera and glasses that he wore, so you had a whole new perspective, that camera that we never got to see. Well, one just acquired all those proprietary rights. With that, there's way more opportunity. And one is smart. That dude that owns one, isn't that Tony? Does Tony Khan own one and WWE now and the Jacksonville Jaguars? Like, what? I could be wrong on that, but I want to say Tony Khan owns. He might not be the complete owner, but he's definitely involved on a high level, like a CEO level. And what a dick. Man, I stopped for this kid to cross the street, and this stupid asshole turned on him. Sorry, that just messed up my whole video. I'm basically at the end. I just feel like one championship is gonna be what takes over. There's gonna be way more opportunity. And as we go through amateur shows, most of the amateur shows that I'm seeing are willing to do kickboxing or Muay Thai and also have jiu-jitsu. So it's like creating more opportunities and familiarity for the whole path of progress. When someone starts somewhere and they're working their way up, there's somewhere to go with it with one championship where there's not in UFC. But man, this turned into 15 minutes. I didn't plan on it going that long. But yeah, that's my video. Y'all have a good weekend.